Hey guys, today I'm talking with Christopher Lee, who is the president of Northern California USA Dance Chapter, my friend and a colleague. And today we would like to talk about ballroom dancing in college, right? As I understand, Christopher, you went through that experience yourself, right? And I think you're an expert in that field to talk about what's the best for students and how to go about ballroom dancing throughout their college, right?
Yeah, thank you for having me on board.
Yeah. So why don't we start with the first topic of today, and that would be stress relief in college, right? As one of the points, dancing can be very relaxing, and it's also an exercise, right? So it can be very beneficial for students to dance after their studies or between their studies, right? What do
hmm
you think?
Yeah, most definitely. Especially with a lot of pressures that college students have, especially nowadays, they need an outlet to be able to like socially engage, to be able to enjoy themselves, but also like one thing about dance, which me and my wife have talked about this, both of us coming from different like collegiate teams, but we've always seen dancing as something as a sort of form of like yoga, like a sort of meditation, essentially, something that we can sort of work towards that betters ourselves and has a lot of like pluses along the way as well too. And it's accessible. You don't need additional equipment. You don't need anything specific. You just need a floor. You need music, and hopefully you'll also have a partner. And even that's optional these days. So yeah, it is one of those types of activities that really does reduce the stress levels of various students these days.
Oh, that's cool. So maybe you can. Did you start yourself dancing in college or before that?
So I started primarily in college. I started in my beginning social dance classes over at San Jose State University. It was, in all frankness, I got into it because I wanted to impress this one girl that lived in my dorm, and she primarily did West Coast swing at the time, but she also got me into a lot of the social dances. And from there, like, at first I wanted to just impress her, but then I found that I actually really enjoyed the activity itself. The next semester, I basically signed up for that same class. There was a beginning social dance class and there was a beginning swing class. And I basically took up two of my kinesiology credits all in one go. So from there, it kind of snowballed, and I got to meet a lot of other dancers. I got to help start the San Jose State Dance Sport Club as well too, and yeah, it just kind of went from there. But it was honestly, it was probably one of the most, at least with when it came to like the pressures of like college and like classes and things like that. It was basically my happy place from then on throughout my whole college career.
Right, because I think it's such a different sort of medium, right? College
Mhm.
can be very academic and very, like you said, lots of pressure. You need to perform well. You want to get good grades. You want to pass all the tests, right? And in dancing, you can just kind of a little bit forget about it and little stress. No, not so stressful place to just kind of be and hang out with other students, socialize, right?
Yeah, and I think it's even better because, like, again, when you're kind of amongst other students, and like, what's interesting is that yes, we were all into ballroom dancing, we were all into partner dancing, but we also all came from like different fields. Like at the originally, I was a biochem major, going into a business major, but there were people like engineers, there were doctors, there were people who wanted to work in like social services, education. But you got people who are going to walk in different wakes of life, and all of us kind of shared our stories. We shared our like problems, but we also shared our wins as well too. And it was comforting to have that sort of like support group there. People who maybe weren't in the exact same situation as you, but at the same time, I think I could say this like probably for most other clubs on campus as well too. It was just nice to have like that support group always ready to go.
Cool. And you mentioned you can also take credit for dance club, or what does that mean?
So it does count for kinesiology credit. Pretty much, colleges want to make sure that you are not just sitting on your butt all day. So you can do like archery, you can do like swimming, those types of things as well. But dance, I think, was very popular because again, it didn't require a textbook, it didn't require equipment. And my instructor at the time, Bud Ayers, was fantastic at teaching classes. He was one of those people that I think got people, in fact, a lot of people into teaching later on in life. He was very good at getting people to love dancing and show the reasons why you should love dance and how it can help you organize your own life in a way. You know, there's a lot of like life lessons you can learn just through like the really simple and generalized analogies that you can get from ballroom dancing.
Mhm. That's nice. So, what did you learn?
Well, definitely one of the things I think he always used to say was if you the difference between wanting something and needing something. You know, I need to get this step right. I need to go to this competition. Versus you changing the needs into wants. And when you change that dialogue, it makes it sound so much different. You feel happier, you feel more motivated, you feel like this is actually something you do want. And if you honestly say that, you know, you don't want it and you have to keep desperately saying that this is something that you need, then maybe you don't actually need this. So it was one of those
That's interesting.
yeah, it helped you put things into perspective. And especially when a lot of us were starting to get into competition, you know, the pressure was starting to kind of build up, especially some of us were starting to go to bigger competitions going forward. It did make us nervous. So talks like that with Bud actually did help us out quite a bit. That's why he actually became our advisor for the club as well too, and was actually one of our first coaches.
So it also helps a little bit with the physical fitness, right? If we touch about the other topic of how, balancing academic responsibilities with physical health is tough for students, right? I guess, like you mentioned, the colleges promote students to move, right, and join a club, and that you need to have like these kinesiology activities, right?
Hmm.
So that is, you can use dancing for that in college, right?
Oh yes, it does count as a physical education credit. I can also say just firsthand in terms of like dance, like it motivates you to take on different challenges for yourself as like as an individual. I think one thing that a lot of people really can emphasize a lot when it comes to ballroom is that it's a combination of like thinking and working at the same time. Like you're physically doing something and you're also trying to mentally keep track of it. So you're multitasking the whole time. And it's not even just like general multitasking. It's like I sometimes say it to people like ballroom dancing feels like you're tapping your head, you're rubbing your stomach, and you're doing your taxes with your toes somehow. So it really is it really is a challenge. And I feel like at least when I teach college students these days, or I like see other college competitors, it is a really great physical benefit to them, especially with things becoming a lot more electronic now. You know, we have computers, we have like electronic devices. But in general, I think the thing I see and I hear a lot whenever I teach like kids of parents, or I talk to like other parents, or I talk to other students, is like the biggest issue is like posture and how that has suffered over the years. Being in COVID didn't help either as well too for a lot of the kids. So college students, I think, in terms of like, you know, not just like outside of like the social aspect, the physical aspect of tailoring ballroom dancing, I think can help them gradually learn to build themselves up in terms of their posture, and even like motivate them to seek other things. Most of the people I know from collegiate ballroom ended up exploring other avenues of fitness to improve their ballroom going forward, because the campus offers things like yoga classes, Pilates, Tai Chi, things that can help an athlete out going forward. So, and this is all in the pursuit of improving something that they really do enjoy.
Yeah, that makes total sense, right? Nowadays, with all those, like you say, computers, phones, they're so, can be, not for everybody, but they can be so addictive, and get you in this posture, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. And it's like,
dancing promotes opening up, standing up straight, just presenting yourself also in a confident manner, right?
mhm. Yeah, and I
So I
think
think that's very beneficial.
yeah, and I think that is something like I like how you said like a confident matter, like presenting yourself, because I feel like that is something that college students, or at least like, in these like recent generations, have had a much harder time doing, at least at first. When they go into ballroom a lot of the time, I think they see it as like, like a nice quiet sport. They can, do their own thing. They can enjoy the dancing. And then when they start learning that, okay, maybe I could learn to present myself more, I can learn to stand up straighter. There was one student I remember teaching at some point, and he always had this like very slouched position. But when he actually stood up, the guy was literally like 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches taller than me. And you would never know. And he was honestly thinking that we were the same height the whole time. Um, a lot of people used to comment on me when I was in college that I looked taller than I actually was, uh, but primarily just because of how my teachers at the time used to teach me how to stand, and that made a big difference. It was a big boom to my confidence, and I feel like when you're a college student, just getting like little compliments like that, I think can really like affect it can really affect your personality. It can really let you get that boost of, okay, maybe what I'm doing is actually helping me in more ways than I think. And I think it was just a great benefit.
Yeah, right. I think dancing is a safe environment, to develop presentation, develop, like you say, self-confidence, and can be important for kids, especially they come maybe from out of state, or maybe they're not sure what's what, and kind of help them to be more confident about themselves and how they walk into the room and how they present themselves, right? Like you said, it can have a massive impact on in other avenues that they do, right? If they're
Hmm.
just look more confident, they will probably sound more confident, and other people will, feel
Hmm.
that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it snowballs.
Hmm. Cool. So, what about social connections, right? As I like we just talked about, it's a new sort of environment, right? You finished your high school, you come into college. Most of the people you don't know, right? So I think
Hmm.
ballroom dancing club can be a great opportunity to meet new people, like you said, future doctor, future lawyers, future whatever, right?
Hmm.
And create social connections, friendships that last a long time.
Hmm. Yeah. In fact, actually, when it comes to like I think the social interaction with ballroom, like it's almost like a much more natural way. Like I don't know if you've ever been to like a conference, like a business meeting conference for like, like working adults in a company, and they kind of throw in these icebreaker games that kind of get you to know people. But those like a lot of times, depending on how it's like done, it always ends up kind of being a little bit forced, like you're forced to interact with these people, forced to learn something about them, versus I feel like something like a ballroom dance class, you're all kind of working towards the same goal. You're trying to learn these steps. You're trying to learn to dance to this music, and you're all trying to have a good time. And from there, like you can start building like natural connections. So just the premise of a ballroom dancing class, in of itself, in my opinion, is like more like a natural icebreaker. It gets people moving, it gets people going, and naturally you start like talking to people. You start getting to know people in your class, in your club. It does become one of the best ways I feel like you can get to know another person, especially like if you consider the dance sport teams who also strive to an additional goal of competing. Then you get a sense of camaraderie there with like your fellow competitors, and you get to meet people again through different wakes of life. And actually, I'm glad you brought up people who come from out of state, because one thing about my school, San Jose State University, we actually did get quite a few like international students. We got a lot of people who came in from different parts of the US or even from different countries, who were visiting San Jose State University for about a year or so. And they, didn't know, like if they weren't confident with like language, they would come to the ballroom dance club because it didn't quite matter if they knew how to talk very well. They could still dance. And especially if they already came with experience already, they found at least a community they could connect to some degree. So it was a great opportunity. And through the club itself, we always try to increase those opportunities through things like, dinners. I mean, obviously we have our competitions, we have our camps, but like just going out to get coffee with like everybody as well too. going out to see a movie together. Like, you just created like your own like friend groups within the club, and then the whole club itself became a friend group.
That's cool. So you would say the process of getting into a ballroom club in all the colleges in Northern California are kind of similar, the same, or there's like some differences?
There are a few differences depending on the format of your club. So like it can sort of be like categorized in like three different ways. Like one, you could have a social dance club. This club, or rather, depending on like the school, will have its own like restrictions. Like first off, like your services or what you're providing for the club is for the benefit of the students. Um, However, like community members can get involved in those types of activities. Like originally, San Jose State had two different dance clubs: the Ballroom Dance Club and the Dance Sport Team. The club itself was only related to social dancing. So if someone from that club were to compete at a competition, they would not actually be allowed to use their school's name. And I believe a lot of other social clubs in different campuses have that same restriction. Granted, it didn't stop them from competing on their own if they wanted to, but the main emphasis of that club at the time was on the social dancing and introducing teachers within the area, getting volunteer instructors, having social dances. In fact, actually, that club came before the team, and it actually also started like a competition as well as one of their like big projects and events. But that was always put together through like fundraising from the club specifically. The school wouldn't really give them a large amount of funding, so they wouldn't be able to do a lot of different things outside of maybe getting people T-shirts and things like that. So that's how we actually started the dance sport team. We originally started as an additional club that focused on competition, but due to these restrictions, not being able to compete under our school's name and things like that, we had to actually switch over to the dance sport club system, meaning we had to be something called a club sports, which the school categorizes as sort of like as a competitive sports team type club. So things like fencing, soccer, we would be put under that kind of jurisdiction. And what was nice about it was that you got additional funding depending on what we put on our budget reports. You got to also market a lot of you could have more fundraising opportunities. So you were a little bit more like flexible in how to like retain like funds for different projects. You also got to be able to compete under your school's name finally. And you would even get support on like things like transportation, athletic wear. So there were a lot of benefits to becoming a sports club at the time. It also did come with restrictions, like most sports clubs and on campuses weren't allowed to bring in community members. Like say we used to have an elderly couple that would come to the social dance club that would frequent it because they knew the teachers who came, and they would be basically donating money to like the team as well too. But then when we switched over to having a dance sport club, we weren't allowed to have like public classes that would be open to just anybody. It would only be SJSU students and faculty. So there were drawbacks to being a dance sport club, but again, the focus was to become a competitive team versus like having a social dance class that everyone could attend every week. Some clubs are able to do both. Like I've seen organizations where they have the club and the team basically work in harmony with each other, and they sort of like work towards the same goals, share the profits and splits. And basically, the club could be used as a way to advertise for the team. That way, you can enjoy dancing in two different ways, either through the social dance aspect or the competitive aspect. You could pick and choose and not have to say like I'm in one or the other. You could kind of be part of both.
Okay, cool, cool. So, for example, I'm a college student. When I'm thinking about starting to dance, right? How much it is going to cost me? Let's say approximately,
Well, these days,
like
if we
financially
look at
wise.
okay, so to give you some perspective, when we first started the club, at least for us, like we kept our rates low. It completely depends on like the club's status at the time. Back then, we had our advisor teach, and he volunteered a lot of his time. And we wanted to try again because San Jose State University is not like a big like UC. Like I feel like a lot of students who come in, are in due to financial aid, or they're getting funding somewhere else, so they're working part-time. So we kept it at, like, back then it was like around, like, I think $25 to be part of the competitive dance team, not the social club, which was like around like 15, I think maybe $20 to enter.
Is
So
that like a monthly or like
that
for
was
one
that was an
time?
entire semester. That was like at least like
Okay,
3 months worth of dancing,
three
which was
months.
a
hmm
steal back then.
Okay.
Um, Granted, again,
What about now?
yeah, you had students teaching students back then. And, nowadays, with like the cost of like and the availability of like coaches nowadays is a lot better than it used to. So teams are able to get coaches into their clubs. But yeah, the prices have increased. So roughly, it can range somewhere between $70 to $90 on the low end, per semester. Granted, that's still a pretty good deal if you're like looking to dance for like 3 to 4 months like straight.
That's a
Some
long time.
clubs do provide annual fees as well too for membership if you're going to be staying for like a fall semester and a spring semester, depending on what school system you had.
Okay, so sounds like 50 to 100 bucks somewhere there you pay for membership to
Hmm.
join the club, right?
Yeah.
Something like that for one semester, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
then
Yeah, and there was always the option for people to drop in as well too if they really wanted to. Granted, the school didn't really like that necessarily. Again, like nowadays, when it comes to clubs, it becomes a little harder for them to collect like payments, since most schools don't allow their clubs to take up things like Venmo, PayPal, like digital forms of like payments. Um, it's usually like cash, or it's usually like a check or something like that. They use very old-fashioned methods that they can use to, like, track it more easily.
okay, so that's the membership. Then,
Mhm.
so you get access to the coach that the team has, right?
Mhm.
Either student-led learning, or maybe they have a volunteer, or maybe they hire a coach, depending, I
Mhm.
assume, on the club. Okay, and then that would give you a couple of group classes a week, and maybe like a social dance event, right?
Mhm.
So to get you going, right?
Yeah.
Then you probably need shoes, right? I assume,
Mhm.
or
Yeah, and,
you
one thing that I think a lot of clubs do around here, because, well, for one thing, clubs can also take in donations. So this is like a really good thing for anyone that just has a bunch of shoes that I know I've had a whole closet of like shoes that I've purchased,
Mhm,
worn them like once or twice and realized, okay, this is probably either not the right size, or it's not like the right style. Like, you give
mhm.
a product a try and you go to different competitions and try different things out. For people who have stuff in their closets that are just sitting around, donating to your local college dance teams is probably one of the best way to like kind of give back to the dance community, because there are a lot of students that do struggle with finding like dance shoes, like at least affordable ones. I know one of our local vendors, Ballroom Connection, was really good about like helping our team, with like discounts and helping us like do like group orders for shoes and stuff. It would actually even be a team bonding activity. You'd have a bunch of college students stuck inside a small shoe store, and we would all be just trying to figure out what shoes fit who. So that was always a fun experience at the time. But yeah, shoes like can either be donated to the team, but the goal would be eventually, it would be always be a stopgap for making sure that members would eventually be able to afford their own pair of shoes. And we could also buy from one of our local stores, because our team always did try to emphasize like reaching out to local resources. Um, Funny enough, I think there was like a store. I think it's closed down now. There was a little like store in Little Saigon that was like right by our campus that sold these like Chinese brand or Vietnamese brand like dance shoes, and I think someone purchased it and like literally it fell apart like in a week. So we all said, yes, this is very inexpensive. Don't ever get it. It's not worth the money.
That's
So,
funny.
so they bought something that was like maybe like I think $20 or $30 more over at Farm Connection, and they ended up, keeping that pair for the entire year. So there was a pretty big difference at that point. And that's sort of what our club was there to do as well too, was to point students in the right direction. Like there were going to be some people that did want to pursue dance outside of just their classes, whether it's like to go buy shoes, find dresses, maybe even find their own private coach if they could find one in addition to coming to the practices. So that's kind of what a lot of dance sport clubs sort of become as well too. I know our club currently right now is sort of like that. It becomes a hub for information that connects students to their local dance communities, because
Mhm.
I think walking into a dance studio for a college student that is just learning their steps, they come in and they see these amazing like youth competitors like striding across the floor, or they're like running, you doing a quick step, or you see like a lot of like young Latin couples, and you see like coaches like really working with their students with bands and weights and sticks. And then they're thinking, wow, I can barely do a box step, I probably shouldn't be here at first. So I think when you're part of a club though, clubs tend to go out to different studios, they go out to like different groups, and they help their students connect to like dancers within the local area, um, and look for like resources, recommendations for different teachers, different coaches. Even some alumni can come back to help the students as well too with those types of things.
And I'm sure the USA Dance chapter is always there to give information, and help with anything that's needed for students.
Mm. Actually, USA Dance, back then for our club, like I'll be honest with you, the USA Dance like competition and like the structure was a big motivator. I remember back when we first started the club, the former president James Kleinworth at the time, I don't know if he remembers, he sent me like some information about college clubs that I could use as a reference to kind of getting the club going. So, just for reference, when I first started ballroom dancing in college, I did start from the class, and I did start a club with our. I did start a competitive team with a bunch of other students from the social dance classes, but we really didn't know kind of where to start in some ways. So we did collect a lot of resources, and we even got donations from members of the USA Dance community. James helped us get started with that at first. We got to learn about different things like competitions. Our team even got to volunteer at a bunch of competitions thanks to like the chapter. I think we got to even some of us even got involved with like the God. I think it was way back. I think in 2010, the USA Dance Nationals. I think that might have been when they held it in LA, and a lot of us got opportunities to compete and also volunteer. Like just standing at the front doors or the front desk. It was a really good experience for some of us, and it was an opportunity that we wouldn't have had if we hadn't talked to USA Dance about it. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like I think like getting involved with like local organizations like that, like our chapter for Northern California, or for other parts of the United States, like their different clubs and organizations, like I think it helps to get that kind of experience as a student. That way you can kind of see like the overall like community as a whole, like not just the dance portion, but the logistical side of things, the competitive side of things. And you kind of are again forced to meet new people, and you enjoy doing it. You get to make a lot of really cool connections.
Yeah, that sounds cool. So, what do you think? Like, okay, let's kind of talk about it again on the lower level, right? Okay, 50
Mm-hmm.
bucks maybe for a semester of dancing. You can get shoes, maybe a donation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then attire. You don't really need much. Just pants, your t-shirt. Doesn't need to
Mm-hmm.
be too fancy in the beginning to get you going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe then you attend like I know a lot of colleges have their events, right? You can enter that and have an experience of a competition, and you
Mm-hmm.
find a dance partner, and then maybe you can wear sort of like a suit, right? Again, you don't really need like a professional attire at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you really like it, then from there you can get maybe like a special dance pants, or you can use just a regular shirt, white shirt, right? You don't really need that much.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
maybe the next level for you is uh, a couple of those events, because I know that in Northern California, many of the colleges hold their own little events, dance competitions, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
join other colleges and have more experience, and then maybe go even to the nationals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe have a achievement there. I'm just thinking about sort of the journey of a college student in ballroom
Mhm.
dancing and how that sort of develops. And maybe you can talk how did you kind of got hooked on dancing.
Well, I definitely like went through that whole process that you pretty much just mentioned. I will also say, like, if you've never attended a collegiate competition before, you are definitely missing out because it's one of those experiences, and actually, it's one of the big motivators for a lot of students to even ballroom dance to begin with, because the college competitions, they're competitions, obviously. You're competing, you want to get good placements. But one thing about college competitions is that it's sort of seen always as a place to try things out, to take risks, and to kind of really push yourself, even if you don't know if you're like doing the best work possible. It becomes more about challenging yourself than it is about like, competing. And I know we can say that about any other competitions, but I'd say college competitions emphasize that point a lot. They're usually all locally run, like you said. They're run by their own like local teams, and they bring like community members in the area to judge as well too. It becomes more like a nice little like local skirmish than anything else. But what's great about it is it's a large collection of like-minded college students competing against each other. All of them under those same circumstances you mentioned. Again, most of them don't have like great dance wear. Like they probably just picked up a tie over at Daiso, a shirt over at like JC Penney or something like that. Like just something like simple that they could work with. But yeah, and that's why a lot of clubs and a lot of competitions like that have also like what they call like syllabus like dress code or regulations. To like, for example, the followers for like the ballroom division are only allowed to wear, I believe, like a plain skirt and a plain top with no reflective properties. It makes the judging easier, but it also kind of puts everyone in the same like field. Like if someone could afford like a very expensive, lucrative ballroom gown versus like, like this person who had to go to like Forever 21 and pick up a top and skirt there, like there was going to definitely be a difference in look. So it kind of helped keep the judging fair to a point where it was only about the dancing and less about like the attire. Granted, though, we still got donations for attire, like older dresses or like dancewear and things like that. But that would be saved for later on when people would get up higher levels in the like collegiate dance sport circuit. And again, it kind of gave people something to work towards because one of the big things and reasons why a lot of people like to social dance, why students like it, is it gave them a chance to dress up and have a fun time. I know for my wife at the time, Tammy, she really enjoyed the idea of like dressing up. Like she liked costumes. She liked, yeah, she liked being able to look fancy. And that has continued to this day. That's why we're still dancing. But sorry, rolling back to at least my journey. So as I mentioned, I started the team. We started the club. We started going to a lot of our local competitions. Again, our club at the time, the San Jose State team, was one of the newest teams at the time. So we really didn't have a lot of knowledge. We met maybe once or twice a week at our local like college gym. We had our advisor as our coach. He was a fantastic coach. He taught us regularly, and he would teach us sometimes outside of our practices as well too, if there was time somewhere or we could get a space. We would go to all the different schools as like San Jose State representatives. We gained experience. We kept talking to different students from different clubs, learned more about other organizations like USA Dance, learned about other competitions like held within the local area, learned a little bit more about who was coaching these other teams as well too. So that gave us a little bit more of a reference because we really were starting from zero at the time. In fact, thanks to the team, when I became like president in like the second year, I started reaching out to more local services in the area for dance sport, like studios, shoes, costumes. That's how I ended up actually finding about the Premier Ballroom at the time. And the owners back then graciously let a lot of our college students at San Jose State University come over to volunteer at their parties and events. We got to come into some classes. They even like taught some of us private lessons if we traded hours for like private lesson instruction. It was a fantastic opportunity, and not many studios were offering that at the time. Granted, I had to clean a lot of bathroom floors. That's not fun after a whole weekend of Friday,
I
Saturday,
see.
Sunday dance parties. So, but like it gave us something to work towards, and I feel like back then for our whole team, it sort of helped us build a lot of character as well too. So as we were building our dance skills, building our rapport, we were also kind of learning life skills. We were learning to work for the things that we had. We also learned to work together and collaborate. We learned to coordinate. Even running a collegiate competition was a challenge, and a lot of people, I think, underestimate how much event planning goes into a college event like that. You could say, yeah, it's a college competition, but it's still a fair amount of like planning that you have to do, and it was a good entry point into this type of like organization. Even our clubs still run a sort of like president, secretary, vice president structure, so they have to learn how to be parliamentary at the time. So being part of a dance club back then really taught you a lot of different skills that would kind of build towards maybe different careers going forward. um, but through all those interactions, eventually we found out about USA Dance. We found about the USA Dance Nationals. Me and my partner, we went. A couple of our club members went. We all got our butts kicked. It was pretty bad.
But
I
it
think
was
there
fun,
was,
right? I mean,
yeah,
the journey
I
and
think
the
there was at
experience.
one point. I think one of us panicked and mistook like waltz for foxtrot. I think back then it was pretty nuts, but it was such a great experience to see so many people from different areas of the United States. And I think that became a big motivator for a lot of our students in the future. So we kind of see where the precipice would be, or at least at our point, it was like a high mountain. Now it's one of those things that I think students can still look forward to doing, having like a big competition. And there were even other college students there at the time too. Back then there was no national collegiate dance sport championship. It was just we just kind of got lumped in with everybody. So there wasn't like a specific field where college students could compete in at that time. But it was a big motivator for me at least, and it got me into looking for different coaches. I kept practicing over at Premier Ballroom, taking lessons. Eventually found like other coaches as well. Went to other studios. I even like worked part time over at Ballroom Connection as sort of part of this whole dance journey I've taken to kind of stay within the industry. Especially since I found out that I don't really like working in hotels, and I was a hospitality major at that point. So I went from that point going on forward to teaching, figuring out that I was pretty decent at teaching after basically teaching my team for like 5 or 6 years. Taking that opportunity to work at different studios as like a staff instructor, working at front desk, and then eventually I would kind of come full circle, and then now now I'm starting to coach the San Jose State University team. But throughout this whole point, I was still working on my own dancing. I went to nationals. I went to USA Dance Nationals. Um, I got to see a lot of like really great competitors and a lot of other alumni from other college teams as well too. Got to talk to them, and I even got involved in our local Northern California USA Dance chapter now as well too.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously, not everybody is gonna become so professional as you, right? But I think anyways it's a great journey to be a part of, right? And you can create a lot of memories with your friends. And as I see in the dance community in the Bay Area, there's many alumni of or ex ballroom team dance sport participants who still keep in touch, and they're still friends. Even maybe they're long already graduated from the college, but they're still dancing, right?
Hmm.
And they still sort of enjoy this hobby. It could be a hobby for a lifetime.
Hmm. And it is also something that I emphasize to a lot of students, and I also emphasize it to my own team as well too. Is that ballroom dancing will always be around there for you. Like there are plenty of places to go ballroom dancing, and if you for some reason in your life need to walk away from it for a little bit, walk away from it if you need to. Come back whenever you like. The doors will always be open for everybody. In fact, one of my inspirations back when I was a student, when I was taking lessons at Premier Ballroom, it majority of their clientele back then were more seniors. But it's like I look at a lot of these seniors and they're like dancing like miles and like laps around me while I'm like learning how to do my stuff. I decided for myself that I wanted to be that. That was something I really wanted to do, was continue doing this activity that they're doing and keep it up until I'm at that age. Honestly, I can't see myself not dancing going on in the future. And I think that goes for teaching as well too. Like I really enjoy teaching, and I don't think I could imagine myself not teaching all the way to the point that I die. So it's like another thing I think Bud used to say to us, and I think this is more generic, but if you enjoy what you do, you never really work a day in your life, right?
Hmm.
And I
True.
yeah, and I like a lot of instructors, I think, really enjoy being part of this community. We enjoy teaching, we enjoy competing, we enjoy going to dance events, competitions. So it might seem like it is work, and it is in times, but it's also work that we are more than happy to do.
Yeah, I think to sort of recap our conversation today about ballroom dancing in college, right? There's many paths you can take as a student to join, maybe just for a half year, maybe a year, maybe try it out, maybe it becomes your lifelong passion. Uh, it's a great social activity to meet new people, right? Also exercise, also creative outlet, right? A little bit forget about the academics for a little hour and just, like you said, for you, it can be almost like a little meditation, right? You sort of release of your, you know, tests and all of that, and just sort of be in your body and with the music and with another human being, spend some time together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right, and if you have any questions, there's a local Northern California chapter can help you with anything to guide you as a college student in your ballroom dance journey. Right.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of put in there is that yeah, like dance sport clubs are not just like resources for their own students; they're also resources for a lot of alumni as well too. Um, because there are a lot. In fact, actually, in recent years, we've had a lot of like students who come from different parts of the United States. They come here to our area, and again, like it's the same situation. You come in, you kind of can look up the different dance studios, but you don't really know where to start. But you know you used to like your dance sport club from back when you were in college, so you'll contact a local dance sport club and say, hey, where can we go dancing, or can we join your club? Do you guys allow for community members or not? So it becomes again a hub of information for even people who aren't part of that specific club, but again, they kind of like at least like dive into that network and find that information from there. And I think that's one of our goals, at least in the USA Dance NorCal chapter, is to make those resources also more readily available for people who are coming out of like the post collegiate like dance circuit. They want to find opportunities for different coachings. They want to find other competitions that they can go to if they want to push this going forward. And they want to just find more resources. And I think that's something that our chapter is working towards consolidating, so that way it has a lot more ease of access, especially in our generation now. Like this is a generation where you can get information just like that. Like it comes very quickly for people. So we want to make that more readily available.
Sounds great. It was a pleasure to talk to you today, Chris, and happy dancing.
Thank you.
Yeah, see you around.